Thanks, guys. Thank you, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here. Actually, I have been here before, but not with Atomos. It was about 5 years ago. No, more, 8 years ago. I was here with, actually with Blackmagic Design when I was running their sales channel, and I was up here giving a presentation on Decklink cards. And I see a lot of familiar faces around here. So, Atomos, we make creativity weapons. Sounds pretty aggressive. Our names are pretty aggressive too. Ninjas, samurais, shoguns, different assassins. And the reason we call them that is because we believe it's our job to kind of stick up for you guys. We're the assassins of MPEG because when I was making post-production equipment in Japan about 15 years ago when I started my career, at that time, MPEG was our enemy, and DV actually was the enemy at that point. DV 420 was the enemy. And we turned it into 422 and we could edit it much better. And I'm going to talk tonight a lot about those times, the DV times and the transition to HD and what's going on moving to 4K. So why do we call those products those names? Well, we're the assassins of MPEG and we're also the assassins of the cost of media. Because everybody knows that it's great to spend X on your camera, but that's not really where it hurts. It hurts in the media cost or in the time in the digital world to move media around. I love tapes. Put your hand up if you like tapes back in the day. Why? Because if you made a mistake or the computer did something really bad, which it often did in those days, then you could go back to your master and you could re-digitize it and you go, oh, thank God, I've got the master. Well, in digital days, that kind of went away a little bit. So I'm going to go through what I think is happening in the 4K world. I'm going to introduce our new Shogun product and tell you how we think you should do 4K the right way. So, Atomos and the Japanese. It's a big theme. You see a lot of Japanese themes in what we do. We are also very, very close to these large manufacturers. Now, just to remind you that the Japanese have been making sensors and lenses for an extremely long time. There's a gentleman called Akio Morita-san who was the CEO and co-founder of Sony. And he pioneered the invention of camcorders, he pioneered the invention of the digital sensor, and also obviously pioneered quite a bit in the tape and media world. And he is actually quite a hero for me. And I'm very, very proud that in the last 6 months, Sony have been giving me quite a few phone calls. In December last year, they called and said, you know, we've got this cool camera, and it's called the A7S, and it's a 35mm full-frame sensor, but it only does HD internally, but we want to put 4K out, and we'd like to record to your Shogun that you told us about last quarter. And I said, well, that sounds very interesting, but I don't like announcing products too early, because what happens is if we slip a little bit, because we're working really hard, but we can't actually know everything about the development, then you guys all hate me the day after I said it would be delivered. And we didn't like that on the first few products that we delivered. So we don't like announcing products too early. But that opportunity for Sony to co-promote, co-launch their A7S with our Shogun was too good an opportunity to miss. And so the reason we are so close to those Japanese guys is I lived and worked there. I played rugby with them. I dined with them. I know their children. They are just like you and me. They work extremely hard to get great products out into the market. And they're our friends. And we're helping them to improve their cameras because they're a little bit deficient in some areas at the moment. And one of them is the recording. ProRes took over the world and they just kind of missed it. And we have a business because they missed it, but it's our job to help them keep improving their cameras. So this new camera here, the FS7, is, I think, one of the best cameras I've seen in the last 10 years. And with our product on top at $8,000, it's an F5 full-frame sensor. Extremely great performance. That's 65 years, I counted, of technology that's gone into that sensor since the Japanese started making them. And so with the Shogun and this camera, $2,000 for the Shogun, this is US dollars, and $8,000 for that camera, you can record for 4K, ProRes, up to 60p for $10,000. And the quality is unbelievable. Tony? So history shows us the right way. Standard definition. It was a great thing to have standard definition cameras, and it changed the world when DV came into the non-linear world, and we started to use computers, and we ingested tapes. I've told you how much I like tapes. Once I got it into the computer, then I was using hard disks. And as you move from one definition to another, everything goes boom. Everything goes bigger, obviously. And so where we struggled on the SD to HD transition was we couldn't use tapes anymore, so that whole workflow went out the window. Flash memory wasn't big enough yet, and it was extremely expensive. Do you remember P2 cards? P2 cards, 8 gigabyte for $1,500. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I think you've made a mistake on your brochure. And that recorded a whopping 15 minutes of, I think it was DVC Pro HD at the time. And it was pretty obvious that that was not something that the masses could pick up. So at the time, the camera manufacturers all were making money from selling tapes to you guys constantly. They really didn't make much from the camera. Amazing engineering goes into it, and they would charge a pretty reasonable price compared to what it took to make that camera. And where they made their money was tape. Now, flash memory comes along, a whole business model falls over. And so the first attempt to save that and keep factories going was HDV. And HDV was an okay format. It was only 1440 in resolution, but it did the job for a small period of time and gave them some time to work out how to do HD properly. But it didn't really pick up then. I was selling Canopus products at the time, I think from 2002 to 2005, and we had this great HD buzz going on in the industry, and my sales were about that much of HD actual capture cards. Then fast forward when I go to Blackmagic, and it just was starting then. And it took another 4 years to really boom. So in my calculation, it was 8 years, the transition from SD to HD. So logically, you'd think that should happen again. Inside that transition, the media cost went through the roof, and it was prohibitive to move. And that's what stopped people, in my opinion, from moving across to HD earlier. So the videotape, the technology was amazing, the media was affordable. We still believe in this model. So what we've delivered to the market is commodity storage. Hard disks from the computer industry, they've solved data rate problems for many, many years. They're experts at it. SATA is an extremely good protocol for transferring data very quickly to and from CPUs and memory. And so we thought, well, why not put a capture card at the camera? Put it on top. And then when we did that, what about if we put a monitor on it? However, and I say we, my business partner and I, Ian Overleys, we were from the capture card world. We had never really shot video. So we put this monitor on and said, there you go, this is amazing. You know, fantastic monitor. Do you like it? Came to IBC and everyone laughed at us. And they said, love that you're recording ProRes to commodity storage disks, but it's an okay monitor. Where's your focus peaking? Where's your false color? Where's your waveform? And we're like, oh, didn't know about those. So we quickly updated the operating system, and one of the good things about our architecture in our products, the Ninja and Samurai, is we've done 57 updates, and it's like your iPhone, you know, we do a new update, you update it, you get more functionality for free. So affordable media, I believe, was the barrier to recording HD. So if we fast forward to the 4K workflow, it's extremely important that we keep the cost of media down so that you guys can pick up the new format. Sony and LG and Samsung are doing their job and getting 4K TVs out into the world right now. I've got one in my lounge room, and my mother almost had a heart attack when she came to visit because she said, oh my God, you've got this big black mirror on your wall. She didn't realize it was a TV. And I think one of the things that drove HD pickup was those great flat panel TVs. And you know what, they're pretty cool now, also in 4K. So cost of media, very, very important. How have we solved that cost of media? Well, we do two things. Tony, can I go to the next one? One more slide, sorry. Okay, affordable SSD, HDD, CFast. SSDs have become very, very affordable. ProRes is a perfect compression because it goes 6:1 from uncompressed, and it brings the data rate down into an area where people can actually use it. So HD ProRes is 100 gig per hour in HQ at 60 frames a second HD. 100 gig an hour. So on a 500 gig drive, you can get 5 hours. Now in 4K world, we need to times that by 4. So it's 400 gig per hour. Starting to get up there. If you use SSDs, it's still going to be quite expensive. You know, what's a 400 gig SSD go for? Around $250 today, depending on what SSD and what speed you buy. ProRes will allow you to use medium SSDs. You don't need the best ones, but you can't use the really low-end ones either. And you can also use, and this is what we're implementing, you can also use rated spinning disks. A lot of people say to me, why do you recommend spinning disks? And about 80% of our customers use those disks. Why do they use them? Because they're extremely reliable, they're about 30 years old in technology, and actually, for the last probably 4 years since we've been doing this, they've been way more reliable than SSDs, because SSDs just die, and then you can't get the footage off. But at least on a hard disk, you can get it off. Don't go up in a helicopter, don't go around a racetrack on a motorbike, but HDDs on a tripod and in a normal lock-off shot are perfect. So we've offered a rated hard disk solution, 2 1 terabyte drives. 2 Toshiba 1 terabyte drives, $60 each, $120, 2 terabytes, 5 hours of ProRes 4K HQ recording for $120. That's a pretty compelling story. You're just above $20 per hour of recording. So we are trying to show you that the cost of media is solved for you if you use Atomos products. We also give you big choice. Can I go one more slide there, Tony? Thanks. So it's your new master. 4K the right way is to use SSDs, HDDs rated in order to use commodity storage, and we don't sell you the drives. We give you a little caddy, plastic caddy, and you go and buy them yourself. We recommend the drives, but we live in your world. We know Amazon is easy, and we know that there's eBay, and we know that there's the local store. We can go and do a deal with the guy. So why should we try and make money from media? That's the old Japanese model. We don't like that model. We thought it wasn't very fair. And so we give you the choice. And we think this is your new tape. These hard disks are your new tape. And in fact, they're so affordable, you can keep them and put them on the shelf. Just like back in DV. And when something goes wrong, you can go to your master and you can say, phew, I've got my master back. There's one more media that I really want to talk a little bit about. It's CFast. There's been a lot of rumors around CFast because SanDisk came and they made it $1,500 for 128 gig or something silly like that. So we were back in those P2 8 gigabyte memory days. Great for public companies to try and make money and increase their share price, but it doesn't help people who are making a living from producing video. And when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I make products for people who make money from producing video. And that's how we view it. We understand you're a business and profit's important, but also creativity is important. CFast will help you be more creative by giving you safety, a very fast workflow, and we've now made our own CFast cards in opposition to these high prices. CFast 1.0 is SATA 2. CFast 2 is SATA 3. I don't know who named that stuff because it makes zero sense in the numbers, but SATA 3 you only need for uncompressed 4K. You don't need it for actual 4K that we're going to record like ProRes, which is 6:1 compression from uncompressed. So this 64 gigabyte card, we also sell 128 gigabyte cards. They're $150 for 64 gig, $230 for 128 gig. And this means that in those environments where you need to run and gun, in the environments where you film and when you need the size, reduced on the device that you're using, CFast is a compelling solution. So we give you hard disk, SSD, CFast, but it's your choice. You can choose whichever one of these that you want that best suits you and your client that you're delivering it to. So the last thing I want to leave you with that, before I show you the actual Shogun, which is the main reason we're here, and I'm sorry about the picture, they took this is the only other picture I had of the camera. I'm sorry I wrote you a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. Now, the first time I heard that, I didn't really get it. After I read it, and Mark Twain I've since read quite a bit of Mark Twain's quotes. Another one I really like is, a bank, they give you an umbrella when it's sunny and take it away when it starts to rain. Why did I put this up here? Atomos is a very well-planned organization. Ian and I spent 2 years planning what we're going to do with this business. And from every part, from how we make our products, how affordable we make them, that's not a mistake. We still make great profits so that we can keep the company going and keep making good products for you. And it's because we're writing a short letter. Our operating system is a short letter. The media that we use is a short letter. We spend the time to make things simple. When you do that, the benefits are immense. And the Shogun is the culmination of everything that we have learnt. We've learnt that you don't like overlays all over the screen. We had to put them somewhere. So we've moved it down to the bottom here. Let me focus that up so that you guys can hopefully see how good this screen is. So what I'm showing you here is a touchscreen interface. We've got HDMI coming in. We've got also a LEMO connector, which gives you XLR, balanced audio, dual stereo pairs in and out, 48 volt, phantom mic power. We've got 12 gig SDI, 6 gig SDI, and 3 gig SDI. So we're future-proofing you. We're trying to outplay the camera manufacturers, try and make sure that no matter what they bring, we're ready for it. That's why we use lots of different media. We've got lots of connections on here, but they're all standard open connections. So you're never really going to be left with it being an obsolete product. And the camera makers are in a bit of a quandary because they're not really sure how to deal with us because we're their friends. We help them sell cameras, but it feels like we're competing against them, but it all ends up playing nicely at the end. So there's been a big change. A lot of people are trying to make cameras. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that you guys get the best sensors and the best recording quality in one combination. I'm inputting into development of these cameras on a daily basis. And you know what? They have engines that can move really, really fast. The A7S was about a year in development. The FS7 was about 8 months. This is quite fast development. It's taking us a year to do this Shogun. And it's our best product ever. But when you crank up a machine like that, then you can really do some amazing things. So what I want to leave you with is we are working with the camera makers that you know and love. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, JVC, Ikegami. They are the who's who of cameras and sensors for the last 50 to 70 years. They aren't going anywhere. They definitely want to stay here in this industry, and they've allowed us to join their teams. And we deliver things like start, stop, trigger over HDMI, time code over HDMI, so you can use these affordable cameras, really high quality, but they go directly into your post-production workflow. So thank you very much for your time, guys. Please come out and see the Shogun.
Thank you so much, Jeromy.
No problem.